What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast. I am Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. And as y'all can tell, we are feeling festive on this Saturday morning. We have the holidays right around the corner with Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We hope that all of you have a fantastic holiday weekend. And we have a pretty brief episode to go through this morning. Again, we have the holidays right around the corner. Both of us are pretty busy, so we do have a few things to hit on today. TCU football celebrating early signing day on Wednesday, finalizing a large recruiting class that includes over 30 players. We will get into that and talk about what's expected there and what that means for the future of the program. We have some holiday hoops to talk about. TCU traveling to Hawaii for the Diamond Head Classic, picking up a big win over Old Dominion, and then falling in the semifinals to Nevada last night. The women's program fulfilling my prediction of closing out non-conference play unbeaten, picking up two big wins over Omaha and Mount St. Mary. So we have all of that to cover on today's episode. As yes, I've got my Santa leaving a present in the chimney ugly Christmas sweater on, one of my favorites. Every year I try and pick up a new ugly Christmas sweater to wear to the family parties and the white elephants. And my Christmas plans are going to be pretty low key. Got a lunch tomorrow with some of my aunts and uncles on my mom's side. And then just going to stop by my folks' house on Christmas Day. Got my grandma coming over and we'll do another lunch there. So my plans are going to be pretty low key. Anthony, how about yours?
Yeah, out here in Tennessee with the family. So trying to go to the Titans game on Sunday. That'll be fun. I think the weather's going to be nice here. So at least whether the Titans play well or not, at least it'll be a good time having the kids out there and hanging out with family and just doing the whole Christmas magic. It'll be a really great time all being together. And yeah, hope all of you are having wonderful holidays as well. And that the TCU presents under the tree, and all your presents, your On It athlete cards, and your Charlie Hustle shirts all are well received as Christmas gifts as well.
It's really weird right now up in the Chicagoland area. I mean, in my place, I don't have many Christmas decorations, so it doesn't feel too Christmassy here, but it's been like 40 degrees, almost 50 degrees here over the last week. And I think we've had maybe one actual snow all winter. It's been a really kind of a bizarre winter so far up here. I don't know what it's like in Tennessee, but
Yeah, we're in the 50s. It's gonna be in the 60s tomorrow, Christmas Eve through on Christmas, probably 60s, which is, yeah, it's crazy. Normally we've had white Christmases here in the past, so
Mhm.
it's an especially warm Christmas, I think, across the country this year.
Yeah, hopefully Santa, when he comes through on his sleigh, coming into Christmas Day, hopefully he'll bring some snow with him as we get into our promos for this episode. This episode, of course, is brought to y'all by our friends at Charlie Hustle Clothing Company. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Go to charliehustle.com. Get your TCU Horn Frog apparel. Use that promo code FROGSOWAR. Get 15% off any TCU items. We also have our exclusive promo code through our partnership with the 1012 Network that gets you 15% off any item at charliehustle.com. That's the promo code 101215 TEN 1215. Yes, Christmas is right around the corner, but if you need a last second gift, last second stocking stuffer, go to On It Athlete and get your TCU Horn Frog trading cards. We have affiliate links posted to our Facebook and our Twitter at Frogs of War, and also our website, frogsofwar.com. 14 cards per pack. Packs are $12.99 each. 33% of all revenue goes to NIL. Support the TCU football program, support the student athletes, and get that last second stocking stuffer before Santa comes to town in a couple of days here. We also have our Prize Picks promo code for daily fantasy sports. Use that promo code FROGS12, FROGS12. That gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. TCU football celebrating a big early signing day, an early Christmas present for Sonny Dykes and the crew as TCU finalizes commitments with 34 total players. That includes 21 players from the high school JUCO ranks and 13 transfer portal additions. Every transfer except for one has signed so far. The only one who has not is San Diego State offensive lineman Cade Bennett, who is still committed. Might just be one of those things where he needs to finish out the school year, maybe earn his degree before he comes over to Fort Worth. But the rest of the transfers, including wide receivers Eric McAllister from Boise State, Braylon James from Notre Dame, Cooper McDonald, linebacker from San Diego State, Davion Deal, edge rusher from Tulane, and many more, finalizing their commitments. And of the 13 transfers that have signed, 12 of them are going to enroll early. That includes Donovan Saunders, the very talented corner from Cal Poly. Getting those guys on campus early is a huge deal. They're going to be on campus for the second semester. They're going to be going through spring ball, spring camp. Big deal as TCU looks to sort of rebuild this roster and bounce back from a really disappointing 2023 season. Of the high school JUCO players, 9 of them are going to be on campus early as well. TCU signing all of its high school JUCO commits. That includes 4-star receiver Jakyle Baker, 4-star quarterback Hoss Haney, who led the Alito football team to a state championship this year, 4-star running back Jeremy Payne, Nate Palmer, who's a borderline 4-star running back, 6 offensive linemen signed in this high school JUCO class as well, in addition to quite a few defensive backs. So all in all, a pretty impressive group of players. Sonny Dykes had a press conference a few days ago, spoke to the media about this class, and as it stands right now, the number 4 ranked transfer class in the country. Only Colorado, Louisville, and Ole Miss are better at this point. 14 total transfer additions for TCU. As a whole, the class is right around top 30, but in the Big 12 specifically, it is one of the best recruiting classes of all the teams in the conference, or all the teams that will be coming to the conference next season.
Yeah, obviously it's very exciting to get these guys in. I think that the Big 12 clearly was a big player in the transfer marketplace. Obviously, top ranked Colorado, and then TCU and Texas Tech both in the top 5. Arizona State and Houston right there in the top 10. So, or I guess Houston is 11. So the all these teams are looking to, after what was probably a pretty down year for overall the Big 12, top to bottom. Obviously, Texas gets into the playoff, but and they hit the trail for the SEC. But all these teams looking to reload and bring in instant impact players for the 2024 season. So I think that sets up for a very intriguing Big 12 schedule next year. I think that'll be a lot of fun. It will certainly be interesting to see what Colorado's plan is. Yes, they have the top rated overall transfer class, but the worst rated overall in the Big 12, at least, high school recruiting class. So not a team that looks to be looking to the distant future. Maybe that says something about what Deion Sanders expects to do at Colorado, and maybe once his sons are out of there, he'll be out of there as well. I don't know if that's setting up for a lot of long-term success. Maybe they can bring in the top transfer class every year, and that's certainly a way forward. That is a potential way to find success in the future. I don't know, but I think it's very interesting to see how this all will work in the future. I mean, as well, the NCAA is fighting battles in the court, fighting transfers where it's possible multi-time transfers is the way of the future, that there will be no transfer restrictions. You could transfer anytime in any window and as often as you like. So I think that all of that is very much up in the air, but it's very cool to see these Big 12 teams competing nationally in the transfer marketplace, where it was thought to be, hey, this is the rich are going to keep getting richer here, which there is certainly some of that, but to see TCU in the top five among these other Big 12 squads, I think the conference is well positioned to be extremely exciting in 2024.
And looking at the high school JUCO class for TCU, as far as players who could potentially be immediate impact guys, I think Haas Haney is the one that stands out right away. He's been a part of the Elite 11 series, All American caliber quarterback, and had a truly tremendous career as a starter at Aledo, back to back state championships, and with TCU's quarterback room losing Chandler Morris, Josh Hoover he's kind of like uh, Will Smith from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He's standing in the room by himself. He's the only real quarterback on the roster right now for the Frogs, and so people have talked about Haas Haney potentially coming in and competing for the starting job right away. We'll see what the quarterback room looks like as the Frogs get ready for spring ball. But Haas Haney is definitely going to be a name to keep an eye on as TCU moves into 2024. And then looking at the transfer class, a lot of these guys I think are going to be competing for starting jobs right away, with Andy Avalos coming over from Boise State to be the new defensive coordinator, having that edge rusher role, which is going to be new to the TCU defense. I think Davion Deal is someone that has day one starter potential in the defensive backfield. I think someone like Jace Oliver coming over from Tulsa, who's been a 3-year starter, I believe, is a player that could potentially compete for a starting job in the secondary, with Mark Perry and Miller Bradford, I believe, both departing from the roster. Donovan Saunders, Anthony, as you said last week, is an FCS gem and is actually one of the highest rated transfer additions in this entire class. So he's a player that realistically could compete for a starting corner job day one, with TCU losing Josh Newton. They will have Avery Helm coming back along with Channing Canada, but Canada didn't get a whole lot of starting experience last season. He played quite a bit, but TCU is also losing, guys like Jayonte McMillan and Ish Burdine and some others through the portal. So Donovan Saunders will be another one to keep an eye on. Looking at the offensive line, TCU losing 4 starters this year. So Cade Bennett, should he eventually sign, is a guy that's going to likely be a day one starter. And then someone like Bless Harris coming over from Florida State, who was a 2-year starter for the Seminoles when he was healthy, but just had some injuries over the last few years. If he's healthy, I think you got to almost plug him in as a day one starter as well. And then Carson Bruno from Louisiana Tech, who is an all-conference player in Conference USA. Not sure if he's going to be a tackle or a guard with TCU, but another guy that's probably going to be competing for a starting job, if not a spot on the 2 deep. So, some of these transfers are going to fill depth. Like I'm looking at like a Cooper McDonald. That's probably a guy that's going to be a depth player for TCU, with Johnny Hodges and Shadrack Banks coming back. But a lot of guys that are going to be potentially starting games for TCU in 2024. And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, and for these high school guys, I mean, TCU threw a lot of bodies at the offensive line problem in these transfer and recruiting classes. I mean, the you just ran through all the guys who could potentially step in and fill those holes right away from the transfer class. But I mean, the guys from the high school class of 2024 are going to be competing for those spots and for reps and for at least time on the 2 deep where they might be called upon. And again, brought in 5-6 guys on the offensive line from the high school class. Just it was an obvious area of need that TCU is looking to address, both in the transfer portal and with high school guys. And you like to see that balance of, we're looking a little bit to the immediate future, but also to the long-term future at the position. I think also out of the high school class, some guys that might have a chance to contribute right away, the 2 running backs, because, Amani Bailey going to the NFL, and that room not picking up anything from the transfer portal. So Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne, both big time borderline 4-star guys that very impressive high school careers that could step in and earn reps right away from Cam Cook and Trey Sanders. So I think that we'll see more of them through spring and fall and into the season. I think those guys, when they get on campus, will be big contributors. And let's not sleep on the specialists either. TCU loses Jordy Sandy and
Mhm.
Griffin Kell and brings in high school guys Kyle Lemmerman as a kicker and the Australian Ethan Craw. So those guys might step right away into the place kicker and punter roles from day one. I know there's maybe some other guys on the roster that will be competing, but very talented specialists and don't want to sell short. I know they end up at the bottom of these lists because the rankings are very different from the rest of whatever 24/7 and On Three and all those guys put out. But looking forward to those guys. I think that could be your next crop of long-term high-level specialists at some point for TCU.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes, when I listened to his press conference on Wednesday, he talked, for it was about a 30-minute press conference, and he spoke for about 3 minutes about the specialists. And Kyle Lemmerman, who's the best kicker in the state of Texas and arguably the best high school kicker in the country, is he's actually a 3-star prospect, like as a whole on 247. And you don't see many specialists, kickers, punters, long snappers who are, they have their own sort of rankings through outlets like Cole's Kicking and Sailor and Rubio, but to actually have a 3-star prospect as a kicker is a pretty dang big deal. So Kyle Lemmerman, as you said, is going to be a name to watch out for next year with Griffin Kell leaving and Jordy Sandy leaving. TCU, I think, has about 3 or 4 kickers / punters on the roster already, but not sure how much experience they've really had. I think Luke Laminack has
Mm-hmm.
had limited experience in place of Griffin Kell, but it's going to be a competition to see who takes on those roles. And of course, this is early signing day. Technically, February is the official signing day, but I mean, TCU has basically locked up its class already. Is it possible that the Frogs maybe add a couple players over the next few months? Yes, but I think we'll see. We've seen the majority of the movement already, and any moves that occur over the next couple of months will be happening very sparingly. So ultimately, we're getting to the point now where it's going to be about getting these guys on campus, which Sonny Dykes said will start happening in mid-January. I think January 10th is when some of these guys might start arriving on campus, and then they'll be making the push to spring camp and then ultimately the spring game. They'll be here before we know it. So uh, a very successful early signing day for TCU football, as we do have a couple of transfer portal updates with TCU. Our last episode, we talked about, I think 10 new transfers for TCU. And since that time, TCU has added 2 more, one of which I mentioned already is Jace Oliver, the safety from Tulsa, who was there for 5 seasons, had over 100 total tackles and 6 interceptions over that time, 4 of which came during the 2023 season. TCU also got a bonus stocking stuffer early signing day surprise from California linebacker Caleb Elarms Orr, who was with the Golden Bears for, I believe, 3 seasons and was a starter this year and was a very good player for that Cal defense. Had some big offers from other schools out west before ultimately signing with TCU. So that's a name I didn't mention previously, but a guy who could compete for a spot on the 2 deep and probably will be on the 2 deep at a minimum right away for TCU in 2024.
Yeah, definitely. I think uh, linebacker depth is going to be huge, and particularly in this defense, I think that you'll need to rotate experienced guys around, and I think he steps right away And I think other transfer news, just some guys from TCU who have found landing spots. Wide receiver DJ Allen has signed or committed with UTSA. I'm trying to think who we have talked about last. We already talked about Fontenette.
Yep.
There's still a bunch of these guys have not yet committed to new locations. So, I don't know if that's they haven't found, the offer that maybe they were hoping for, or, if there's some consideration of returning to TCU if there's still a spot available. The big one was Cordell Russell going to Colorado. We may have talked about that
Yep.
before, but that contributed to their nation leading transfer class. And I think they have high expectations for him, just as TCU fans and the TCU staff did with the Horned Frogs. So he'll be staying in the Big 12. Um, Mason White going to Oregon State, I think, is a good spot. They've had a couple of cornerbacks transfer out, so I think he will probably step in and be a contributor right away for them as well. So, I think we've talked about a lot on this podcast before about how, seeing these guys leave TCU uh, to not have ill will against them really, and hope that they find success, and that success comes against teams that aren't TCU. But I think a lot of these guys will have big opportunities. Still, I haven't seen any news about Chandler Morris offers or
Nope.
anything like that. Certainly haven't seen a commitment. So I don't know. I'm sure he's keeping things a little close to the vest there. He's not, out there on Twitter announcing every, contact that he receives like some of these guys do. But um, I think one would expect him to find a very solid landing spot that where he's able to have big success as well.
Yeah, Chandler Morris entering the portal, kind of late uh, with the early signing day deadline in comparison to when he entered the portal. I don't think there was really a lot of time for teams to get him, signed right away. So that'll be something to watch as we move closer to February, is where Chandler Morris winds up, and I'm sure there'll be some Power Five programs and top level G5 schools reaching out to him. So we'll see where he winds up as we go ahead and wrap up our football discussion this morning and transition into our basketball items. Some holiday hoops going on as TCU men's basketball travels out to Hawaii for the Diamond Head Classic. This is an 8-team tournament, 3 games guaranteed, as TCU opened up the tournament on Thursday with a thrashing of Old Dominion, a program that's really kind of struggling right now. I think they're like 3-8 or 4-7, something pretty bad. But TCU came out and took care of business handily in this game. Third time the Frogs have gone over 100 points this season, a new season high in scoring. The final score 111-87 as TCU cruises in the first round of the tournament. The Chuck O'Bannon game, we might call this, as he has 25 points off the bench. He goes 8 of 10 from the field. He makes 6 3-pointers. All in all, a really good game from him. And he's shown this in the past. I mean, every once in a while, it seems like Chuck O'Bannon just uh, breaks out of his cocoon and emerges as a butterfly. And I think in this game, TCU had 9 3-pointers made, and he made 6 of them. So he's a real difference maker for TCU when and we've seen it in the tournament in the past. I mean, when Chuck O'Bannon is making 3-point shots, this is a very different TCU team, because this is a TCU team that frankly is not good at shooting 3-pointers. Right now, after the loss to Nevada, TCU is only shooting just over 32% from 3-point range, which uh, if you're able to get that kind of performance from Chuck O'Bannon, that makes a huge difference. But everybody was good in this game. TCU forced 16 turnovers. They scored 21 points off turnovers, 23 points on the fast break, and many of Old Dominion's points toward the end of the second half came in garbage time. So a good game for TCU to tip off the tournament. And then that put the Frogs in the semifinal round, which was held last night. TCU taking on Nevada. A really important game for potentially adding a feather to the cap in building an NCAA tournament resume. Nevada came in 10-1 on a really good start as well. Unfortunately, this game, after the first 10 minutes, was really not very close. Jamie Dixon was teed up twice in this game. He was ejected, was not happy with the officiating. They were calling things very soft throughout this game. 47 fouls were called in this game against both teams. Nevada 21, TCU 26. Both teams shot hella free throws in this one. TCU was actually really, really good from the free throw line. I think they shot almost 90% from the free throw line in this game. But TCU was really struggling to make perimeter shots in this game. And Nevada was able to build up a 12-point lead at halftime. It was 48-36 at halftime. And the second half, was just kind of a steady. TCU couldn't get within 8. It felt like every time TCU got to the rim, made a basket, or drew a foul, got to the free throw line, made 2 free throws, Nevada came right down and did the exact same thing. The Wolfpack also made 8 threes in this game. They shot 47% from 3. TCU was 3 of 14, 21%. So despite the fact that TCU was great from the free throw line and shot 45% from the field for the game, the 15-point differential in 3-pointers and then the 4 technical free throws they gave up with Jamie Dixon's tees, ultimately that's a 19-point swing in a game that you lost by 13. So, this was somewhat similar to the Clemson game where TCU got down in the second half and just they couldn't find like an 8-0 run or like a 12-2 run to make the game close or potentially tie it up. And, TCU is just not shooting the ball really well enough from the perimeter. Jameer Nelson really struggled in this game again. He was 1 for 9 from the field after going 2 for 12 against Clemson and 3 for 8 against Georgetown. Jacoby Coles also struggled from the field in this game as well. And, for TCU, Emmanuel Miller, who was really good in this game, had 24 points, 8 rebounds, was, I think, 13 of 14 from the free throw line, was knocking them down there at a really high rate. He, along with Jacoby Coles and Jameer Nelson, those are your 3 best scorers. And when those 3 guys are not showing up for you in big games, you're going to have a really hard time winning. I thought Avery Anderson had a nice game off the bench with 11 points. Micah Peavy had 11, but Coles and Nelson, those are 2 guys that need to get it going from the field. They need to start heating up as, TCU will move into the 3rd place game against Hawaii, which will be held tomorrow. After that, they have one more non-conference game. And you're opening up Big 12 play with Kansas, Oklahoma, Houston, number 2, number 7, number 3 in the country. So a mixed bag of results for TCU to start this Diamond Head Classic tournament. I think there have been some really good things, but we've also seen what the weaknesses of this team are and what needs to be corrected moving forward.
Yeah, just to go back to the Old Dominion game briefly, TCU only led by 6 at halftime of that game, and things looked a little bit nervy there, and they came out of the second half on fire and ran away with things. And they were in that couldn't miss mode the same way that Nevada was in game 2. So I think TCU is definitely a team that gets in these playing with fire situations where when they're on, it's going to be tough. Even for these top teams of the Big 12, they're gonna be fighting. But when they're off, when Jameer Nelson is as off as he was in the Clemson game and in this Nevada game, it almost gives TCU no chance against a capable team. The allowing points off turnovers um, and I don't know if he's just got a full green light from Dixon to just go and shoot. But I think maybe that needs to be more of a facilitator than a scorer at some points. I mean, this was just a game against the Wolfpack where he just didn't have it. Um, and I guess TCU as a whole didn't really have it, but you would have liked to see more of the distribution there. Get Miller more involved, get Peavy more involved, get these guys. Anderson, I thought Anderson was really impressive. I know his minutes were somewhat limited. He had some foul trouble. Um, and but I thought he was terrific in this game, really. Um, so I think there are bigger tests to come, but for TCU to have failed its two toughest tests, its only tests really thus
Mhm.
far on the season, both quadrant one games, it doesn't kill you in the resume. They didn't drop any. They have not yet dropped any of the real stinkers on their schedule, but um, to have these two opportunities in the non-conference teams that you're going to be fighting for seeding, fighting for bubble spots. I mean, right now TCU fell out of the top 50 in the net after this loss, which TCU would not be in the NCAA tournament today.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's pretty clear. So TCU has a lot of work to do um, to get back to where it needs to be. And obviously, we'll have tons of opportunities through the Big 12 schedule. Um, but the question will be, can they take advantage of those opportunities? Because the two that they've seen so far have both resulted in pretty ugly losses.
Mhm. Yeah, and looking at some of the numbers for this TCU team, TCU is arguably the best team in the country on the fast break, and TCU's field goal percentage when you look at the season and let's start with some positives here. TCU's free throw shooting has been really good. After the game last night against Nevada, TCU is shooting over 77% from the free throw line. That's really good compared to where TCU was last season, where I felt like Jacoby Coles was the only dude that could make free throws, particularly down the stretch, and he was a guy coming off the bench. So that's a good thing to see. And I think TCU is also attempting more free throws than it did last season because Emmanuel Miller is more of your go-to guy. He's done a nice job of working around the basket, drawing fouls. Jameer Nelson, same way. I'm not. I don't think he shot the ball very well against Old Dominion. He was 3 for 10, but he was 11 of 13 from the free throw line, and he's shooting. I want to say about 80% from the free throw line. So uh, that's been a really positive sign for TCU. They're getting to the basket. They're getting out in transition. But we've seen now against Clemson and against Nevada when teams are able to prevent TCU from getting out in transition and they prevent TCU from scoring on the fast break. When TCU is forced to run a lot of half court offense, that's when things really stall and come to a halt because last season you had Mike Miles Jr., who was a kind of a cheat code for breaking out of a half court offense that wasn't doing anything because he could go one on one with basically anyone he wanted to, and he could knock down a shot from basically anywhere on the floor. You also had Damian Baugh, who was one of the best point guards in the Big 12 in terms of being a facilitator. And I thought he even took a step forward last year in knocking down some of those tough shots. But for this TCU team, you don't have that guy. Maybe we thought Jameer Nelson coming in as a 20 point per game scorer from Delaware could be that guy, but he's just not hitting shots. And to his credit, he's played really good defense. He's averaging about 3 steals a game. He's getting to the cup. He's knocking down free throws, but he needs to make shots. And Jacoby Cole, same way, he also needs to make shots. And I'm not sure if it's worth Dixon making changes to the lineup. I don't know if he needs to swap out Nelson for Anderson, maybe to get some of these other guys going. And maybe you bring Nelson off the bench until he starts shooting the ball better. Trey Tennyson is another guy who I feel like has seldom, he's having a smaller role than I thought he would. As a player who I think is by the numbers, TCU's one of the team's best pure shooters. I would really like to see Trey Tennyson be more involved and get a little bit more run maybe he's not getting a lot of run because he's not a good defender. I don't know, but I would really like to see him get more shots because, again, TCU shot 21% from three in this Nevada game and is shooting only 32.4% on the season, despite the fact that TCU is shooting over 50% from the field on the season. So, what does that tell you? That tells you that TCU is getting a lot of their points on shots near the rim because of fast breaks and forcing turnovers, getting points in transition. But there are going to be times where the defense falters like it did in the Nevada game, or the offense is forced to run a lot of half court sets. And if you're not able to knock down shots, or if you're not able to run good offense in those half court settings, you're going to have a really, really hard time beating good opponents unless you get games like Chuck O'Bannon dropping 25 against Old Dominion. So I think we have a large enough sample size with TCU being 9-2 and having faced some good non-conference teams. I think we have a pretty good sample size so far and a good idea of what this team does well and where it struggles and where it needs to get better moving forward. And we'll see if some lineup changes will fix that or not. But as I said before, Jameer Nelson and Jacoby Coles are two guys that have to play well against good teams in order for TCU to have any chance to win.
Yeah, TCU is top 20 in 2-point field goal percentage, top 25 nationally in free throw percentage, and sub 200 in 3-point percentage.
Yeah.
It's at least the free throws are better than it was last year, but the 3-point percentage is the same range as it was last year. I mean, when you're sub 200 and you're defensively allowing a sub 200, you're one of the you're sub 200 defensively against the 3-point shot. You have games like this against Nevada where the other team makes its shots and you miss yours and you're going to lose whether you're a better team or not. And Nevada's a really good team. That's a tournament team. That's they'll be competing for a Mountain West championship and a legit seed in the tournament. But it it's the worst defensive performance from TCU on the season, and it's unfortunate because it was actually a quite good offensive performance. The free throws and everything outside of the 3-point shots. But you miss 11 3-pointers and you're just not going to win the game as against a team that's making its shots. So you're going to have games like that, but I think we kind of we can't wipe away we can't hand wave these losses to Clemson and Nevada just because those are you had bad games against good teams. We need to see TCU have good games against good teams, and it's going to be very hard to measure against really. I mean, Kansas, Houston, Oklahoma, even the Iowa State games, the Baylor games. It's going to be a gauntlet, and things could really spiral here. I think Jamie Dixon is too good a coach. The talent on this roster is too good that I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I mean, you start conference play 0-3 and things get very worrisome very quickly. So, I mean, we'll find out more about this team over the next couple weeks. And really, this Hawaii game coming up today is a pretty big game. I mean, it counts as a true away game against Hawaii. So a win there that, if Hawaii has an okay season, it could be a good little mark as a quad 2 or high quad 3 win on the resume. So I think it's one TCU cannot be messing around with Hawaii. Hawaii can absolutely come out and catch the Frogs. So I think it should be a fun one, but it counts as a good opportunity to bounce back here against the Warriors.
Yeah, this Hawaii game is a must-win game for me. I think you have to get to 11-2 going into conference play, because with Kansas, Oklahoma, and Houston coming through as your first three opponents in conference play, I mean, I think you'd be happy to win one of those. You would be ecstatic to win two of those, but to start off 0-3 in conference play, as you said, would be really rough, especially if you lose to Hawaii, because then you're looking at being 10-6 with a slew of tough conference games still to come. So
Yeah,
uh,
and I just pulled up Hawaii's kind of metrics here. They shoot 35% from 3 point. One of they're going to be one of the better teams in the country there, and they defend the three at an extremely high rate, allowing only 27% from their opponents. So this has a recipe again for another game where TCU can't shoot the three and allows a bunch of
mhm.
points from the 3 point line. So it's kind of a toss up here. I think it's a huge game. TCU really needs to go out and exert some power against this team, and it's probably going to be force a bunch of turnovers and get Emmanuel Miller to the rim. Uh,
Mhm.
it should be a good one though, and maybe by the time you're listening to this, that game's already happened. So hopefully we don't sound ridiculous breaking this game down and TCU just runs away with it or something. That would be great. But I think if you have a chance to catch the Hawaii game today, it should be a real good test for TCU.
Yeah, make sure you get this listen in today before the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day holidays. As we'll go ahead and transition here into our final TCU hoops item of the morning. The TCU women's basketball team extends its historic winning streak to 13 games, the longest winning streak in program history. TCU closing out non-conference play Wednesday and Friday with games against Omaha and Mount St. Mary's, two weaker non-conference opponents. TCU coming out, taking care of business, dominating both of these games. Really, Sedona Prince was tremendous in both of these games. 27-point double double against Omaha on Wednesday, and a 22-point, I believe, 15 rebound double double in the game against Mount St. Mary's yesterday. TCU cruising over Omaha on Wednesday, final score of 96-69. Madison Connor, I believe, I think she had 19 points or so in that game. Jaden Owens had a 14-point, 10 assist double double, continues to facilitate at a very high level for the Horned Frogs, who also crushed Mount St. Mary's last night, 87-34, the final score. And I believe it was 71-17 after three quarters. TCU had a 25-0 run in this game. They outscored Mount St. Mary's 31-3 in the third quarter. Again, Sedona Prince dominated. Agnes Emma Anopu had 15 points and 10 rebounds for a double-double. Aaliyah Robertson got the start. Jaden Owens didn't play in this game. It was just a scheduled off day to get some rest, as TCU will get into conference play now at 13-0 on the season and ranked in the top 25 as the number 25 team in the country. And uh, really happy to see Sedona Prince close out non-conference play with two really big games. I mean, she's been basically a walking double-double for TCU during non-conference play. And I'm excited to see how she stacks up against some of the front court players in the Big 12. And the same goes for Madison Connor, who is knocking down three-pointers at a historic pace for TCU and ranks as one of the best shooters in the country still. Excited to see what she can do against some of these guards in the Big 12 conference. And then Jaden Owens, uh, distributing at a very high level, has had multiple double-double points, assist games for TCU so far. Very interested to see how she stacks up against the Big 12 after coming over from Baylor this season. So congratulations again to Mark Campbell, his staff, and the Lady Frogs on an unbeaten non-conference slate. I did not jinx them. I knew this was going to happen. They were just they're playing so well right now, and it just seems like every new player that has come in, all five starters are transfers who were not on the team last season, and for all of these players to come in and find their roles and execute their roles the way they have. You know, Madison Connor is the scorer and the shooter. Sedona Prince is the low post dominator. Agnes Emma Anopu is one of your best rebounders. She plays great perimeter defense. Una Jovanovic is a nice complementary guard. She can be a complementary facilitator. Jade Owens as your lead guard is playing extremely well. So it's not often that you have a lineup consisting of entirely new players who have never played with each other before, and they come in with one preseason camp and you come out 13-0 in non-conference play. So even though you may not have faced the toughest opponents, just the margin of victory in some of these games is quite staggering. So it's been really impressive to watch this team, and I'm really excited to see how they can move through the Big 12 schedule.
Yeah, just a terrific start to the new era here for TCU women's basketball. And I think it's the first time in program history to go through the non-conference slate undefeated. So, setting new bars for the program here, and I think that there are more glass ceilings to break for this team. Following the win over Mount St. Mary's, TCU is up to number 22 overall in the NCAA net. And yes, the opponent schedule has not been the best. TCU ranks as the number 307 non-conference strength of schedule per the net. So yeah, you're not playing the stiffest competition, but you do have a win over Nebraska on a neutral. That's a very high level win. Nebraska is number 21 in the net right now. So for what it's worth, winning games is hard. And even if you're overmatching competition, to run through that schedule undefeated is very impressive. And like you said, very much looking forward to what this team will do in the Big 12, where it stacks up in the Big 12 rankings. It's Big 12 is not maybe as difficult on the women's side as it is on the men's side, but it is still has some of the best teams in the country. So should be make for a fun conference slate once that starts here a week from today against BYU. Uh, just looking back at some of the performances from the non-conference schedule, um, to see where TCU ranks nationally and within the Big 12 on some of this stuff. So, as a team, TCU in the Big 12, first overall in 3-point field goal percentage and 3-pointers made per game. Those are number 2 nationally on 3 points made per game and number 12 nationally, 3-point field goal percentage. TCU ranks number 1 in the Big 12 in opponent 3-point percentage and number 2 in the Big 12 in opponent points per game. Number 1 overall in assist to turnover ratio. So TCU really pretty much across all statistics in the Big 12 is top 5, points per game, rebounds per game, all of that stuff. So collectively as a unit, the team is doing some very impressive stuff. But just to dig in on some of the individual contributors, Madison Connor, first in the Big 12 points per game, first in the Big 12 3 points made, second in the Big 12 3-point percentage. She is first in the country, number 1 overall in 3-pointers made, and 3-point field goals per game. Yes, more than Caitlin Clark, the world famous Iowa sharpshooter that is, has all the NIL deals and is an extremely famous women's college basketball player. Madison Connor is currently through the non-conference portion of the schedule, out shooting what is thought to be the best shooter in college basketball. So she's just been on an absolute tear. Her points per game, that's number 7th nationally. So absolutely one of the best players in all of college basketball so far this season, Madison Connor. Sedona Prince, across the board, is either top 1 or 2 in points per game, rebounds per game, and blocks. Let's see. Yeah, TCU has the top 2 points per game in the conference right now, in Connor and Prince. So that's very cool. Prince is 4th nationally in blocks, and then Jaden Owens, 1st in the Big 12, assists per game, 4th overall nationally. So these are 3 players who are statistically 3 of the best in the country, performing at a very high level. Again, the competition is sub 300 strength of schedule, so we got to grain of salt a little bit, but should make for very exciting things ahead for this program.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and cap off our holiday episode this morning here on Frogs Up. We appreciate all of you listening in. And again, we hope that all of you have a Merry Christmas and have a great holiday weekend. Again, Charlie Hustle, get your TCU swag. Use that promo code Frogs Award. Get 15% off any TCU items. Or use the promo code 101215 TEN1215 through our partnership with the 1012 Network. Get 15% off any item at charliehustle.com. Last second stocking stuffer, go to On It Athlete, get your TCU Horned Frog football trading cards. Affiliate links are posted to our Facebook, our Twitter, and our website at Frogs of War. And daily fantasy sports, download the PrizePicks mobile app or go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code FROGS12, FROGS12, get a 100% deposit match up to $100. We appreciate all of the support, all the listeners here on Frogs Up, and also reading our content online at frogsawar.com. We recently updated our website a little bit. Hopefully the user interface is a little more user friendly now. We don't have links up there that are broken or not going anywhere. Everything is updated now by sport. You can look up any soccer articles from this past season, any volleyball articles, basketball, football, and more. So give us a view at frogsawar.com and continue to listen in here on Frogs Up as well. I'm Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. We will go ahead and sign off for the morning with a Frogs Up.
Frogs up.